My name is Madeline. I am 35 years old and I work as the Chief Financial Officer for a real estate corporation in Chicago. I am not the kind of person who demands attention, but I always thought, at the very least, my family would remember my birthday. Especially since I've always been there for them. From the days when no one could afford to pay Tyler's tuition, my younger brother, I carried it all for them. But that evening, when I walked through the grand doors of the mansion where I grew up, I froze in place. The entire house was ablaze with light, filled with laughter, flowers, and confetti. Yet none of it was for me. On the giant cake, carefully written in icing, were the words, "Congratulations, Tyler and Emily." My mother hugged my brother as if he had just won an Olympic gold medal. My father raised his wine glass to cheers and applause. No one noticed me standing there. Not a single wish, not even a glance. Then my mother turned, handed me her phone with a radiant smile and said, "Sweetheart, take a few nice pictures for the family, will you?" Have you ever felt like a shadow in your own family? If you've ever been overlooked, forgotten on your special day, leave a comment below. Hit like and subscribe if you want to follow me to the end of this story. Because in that very moment, I decided I would never let them do that to me again. And everything began on that night. I still remember the feeling of stepping into that house, not like coming home, but like wandering into a place that no longer belonged to me. Crystal lights shone on polished wood floors, white flowers filled every corner, laughter echoed through the air. I spotted familiar faces, Aunt Marianne, Uncle David, a few cousins who had forgotten my birthday last year and the year before. But tonight they all arrived right on time. Because tonight was Tyler's big night. I stood there, still holding the small red-wrapped gift a silver photo frame I'd had custom made, with a picture of our whole family at a picnic when I was 8. One of the rare memories of us all together. When I waved, a few people gave me quick nods and polite smiles before turning back to their wine glasses and the crowd circling the golden couple. Tyler came down the staircase holding Emily's hand, his beautiful fiancée, with golden curls and a sparkling diamond ring. They looked so happy. I wasn't jealous, I just didn't belong there. My mother walked out of the kitchen carrying a tray of tarts, eyes shining. "Sweetheart, take a few nice pictures for the family, will you?" she said, slipping her phone into my hand as if it were a long-standing habit. I looked at her. "But, Mom, today's my birthday." She blinked, hesitated, then chuckled softly, as if I had said something silly. "Oh, that's right. What a coincidence, huh? But you understand, an engagement is a bigger occasion. You're grown now." I smiled. With my lips, not with my heart. I raised the phone and framed the shot, my mother between Tyler and Emily, my father pouring champagne behind them. A perfect picture, without me in it. I set my gift down on a small side table, next to guests' coats. No one noticed. The three-tier cake stood in the center of the long dining table, the soft white icing spelling out, "Congratulations, Tyler and Emily." I walked past the table just as my father lifted his glass. To my son, the man carrying the Edwards future, and to Emily, the only woman who could make him finally settle down. Laughter filled the room, applause rang out. I sat down by the window, away from the light. My wine glass remained full. When my cousin Rachel slid into the seat beside me, she leaned close. "You okay, Maddie?" I nodded, eyes still on the garden. String lights glowed faint gold across the grass, twinkling like traps disguised as family ties. Rachel glanced at me. "You know, I actually thought tonight there might be something for you. At least a little cake." I smirked. "That little cake could sit right next to the photo frame I brought. Make a nice memorial corner." She giggled softly, then fell quiet. Rachel was perceptive, but not brave enough to stand with me. No one was. Because they all knew that standing with me meant standing outside the circle. I left after an hour. No one tried to stop me. On the way to my car, my mother called after me. Maddie, where are you going? You haven't had dinner. I turned. I'm busy. I've got things to prepare for next week. Yes, of course, work, but send me the pictures, okay? I want to print some nice ones to hang in the living room. I nodded and walked straight to my car. When the door shut, silence was so deep I could hear my own breathing. My hands shook, not from anger, but from realizing one simple truth. No one in my family even knew I had just turned 35. On my phone, there was only one message from Jordan, my colleague and one of the few friends I trusted. Happy birthday. Are you okay tonight? I typed back, I'm okay. But we need to talk. Soon after, I met him at our usual small bar by the Chicago River. It was dim, quiet, with slow jazz in the background. Jordan was already there, 2 martinis waiting. I sat down. He looked at me, no need to ask. They forgot again, didn't they? I gave a faint smile. They remembered Jordan, but they chose something else instead. They chose Tyler. He didn't reply, just slid the martini toward me. I took a sip. They haven't just chosen him tonight. They've chosen him for 35 years. Jordan leaned in. You know what? At the office, they call you the real estate troubleshooter. You're the one who saved the North Harbor project from collapsing. You're the reason the company survived last quarter. And you're also the reason your family lives comfortably. The money you sent your dad when your mom was sick, Tyler's sophomore tuition, even that Italy vacation they took 2 years ago. Jordan frowned. Do you have records? Every single one. Emails, transfers, receipts. I saved them all. He set his glass down. You need to do something. Not for revenge, but to stop it. I stared out the window. The streetlight cast a pale glow across my face. I've thought about it. I just don't know where to start. Jordan pulled out a folder. Start by looking at everything you've given away. I took it. On the first page was a detailed ledger, all the money I had given my family since I was 22. The final total was over $350,000. I tightened my grip on the paper. I didn't realize it was that much. Jordan nodded. And they never paid back a cent. Instead, they treat it as your duty. I leaned back, a clarity rising inside me, not rage, but resolve. I closed my eyes and whispered, enough. Jordan said nothing. He knew I was making a decision. And when I opened my eyes for the first time in a long while, I saw myself clearly, not faded, not overlooked. I straightened in my chair. I need a place where no one knocks, just to ask for more. I need a place that's mine. Jordan smiled faintly. And you have the means to get it. I nodded. Then let's start. Tomorrow. Later that night, the car rolled down dark streets, yellow streetlights streaking across the windshield. I didn't play music, and neither of us spoke. Silence was the only thing that let me breathe. In my mind, old memories drifted back, fragments I thought had long been buried. But they were still there, vivid, intact, painful. I was 12 years old. That day, my mom had promised to buy me a chocolate cake from the bakery downtown, the one I had stared at all week. I remember waking early, putting on the pink dress with lace trim my grandmother had given me. I even set up a small table in the backyard. With balloons I blew up myself, and a card scribbled in pencil, Happy Birthday, Madeline. When the clock struck 3 p.m., I was still waiting patiently. Only when the sun began to dip behind the fence did I finally hear the gate swing open. The whole family came spilling out of the car, cheering, wearing t-shirts that read Go Tyler Go, and my father clutching a golden trophy that gleamed in the light. They had just returned from Tyler's basketball tournament. I stepped out, holding the small cake I had baked myself with eggs and flour borrowed from Mrs. Bennett, our neighbor. My mother looked at me and paused, a flicker of unease crossing her face. Oh, honey, did I forget it's your birthday today? But you see, your brother won the state championship. We all have to celebrate him. Then she kissed my forehead, quick and casual, the way someone pats a well-behaved dog. I stood there, arms wrapped around my cake, watching the kitchen lights where they all disappeared. That day, I ate my birthday cake alone under the wooden porch, watching balloons deflate in the evening breeze. At 18, prom night was supposed to be a milestone. I had bought a lavender dress with money from my part-time job at the school library. When I stepped out of my room, hair curled softly and lips tinted with pale pink lipstick, my parents never looked up from Tyler's scholarship application papers. Dad, Mom, tonight's prom. I'm going with a friend. I might be back a little late, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Yeah, have fun, my father replied without lifting his eyes from the documents. My mother only said, "Don't be too late," and locked the door, then turned back to Tyler. "You're amazing, sweetheart. You might get into Duke." The entire house tilted toward him while I stood on the edge, a shadow fading into the background. As I walked to the car where my boyfriend waited, I swallowed my tears. We took a few pictures at the gymnasium, danced for a while, and I went home earlier than planned. When I opened the door, I saw the whole family throwing a party in the living room for Tyler's scholarship, surrounded by his friends. No one noticed me. I went upstairs, took off my aching high heels, sat on the wooden floor, and looked into the mirror. An 18-year-old girl in a radiant lavender dress, but with eyes so dry there were no tears left to fall. Then came my college graduation. I had studied for 4 years, worked part-time, and at times survived on instant noodles for an entire week just to afford tuition. On commencement day, I wore my cap and gown, stepped onto the stage to applause from hundreds. As I searched the audience for my parents' familiar faces, I found only 2 empty seats marked reserved. After the ceremony, I called, "Mom, where's Dad?" Her voice came through, tinged with guilt. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry, but your brother proposed to Emily yesterday. The whole family's busy with the engagement party. I thought today you were just getting your diploma. Didn't think it was necessary for us to be there." I gripped the phone tightly. "Mom, I graduated from college. Alone." "Yes, I know, but you're strong. Your brother, he needs us right now." I stood in the middle of the campus while people around me hugged, posed for photos, celebrated together. I stood there by myself, holding a diploma earned from thousands of sleepless hours. In the years that followed, I stopped expecting anything. I just tried to live properly, work hard, stay financially independent, and ask for nothing. Tyler, meanwhile, was gifted a car right after high school, had his tuition fully covered, and even got his first condo purchased for him when he started working. I wasn't jealous, but I remembered every tuition bill I paid myself. Every night I fell asleep over my books. Every holiday I stayed in the dorm because I couldn't afford the trip home. Once, when I asked my father to lend me a little money for rent during grad school, he said, "You're strong. You know how to manage. Save what we have for Tyler. He needs a launch pad more." I stayed quiet, not because I agreed, but because I no longer had the strength to argue. Every step I took, from my first job at a small firm to becoming CFO now, was built by me alone. No one paved the way, no one pushed me forward. I laid each brick under my own feet. And yet, at every family gathering, whenever someone praised my success, my father always said, "She's good, but mostly because she's learned from Tyler." Watching him taught her to think realistically. I remember turning away, hiding the lump in my throat. Each forgotten detail, each careless remark, each moment my brother was chosen over me, woven together like an old rug, frayed at every corner, just waiting for one hard pull to unravel completely. And that night, standing at Tyler's glittering engagement party, looking at the white cake glowing with candles, knowing my birthday was brushed off as a coincidence, I realized that rug no longer covered anything. I was standing on it, and I had to step off it forever. On Monday morning, I arrived at Northlake Property headquarters at 7:30 a.m. The Chicago sky was pale gray, but inside the 28-story glass tower, the air buzzed with tense anticipation. I walked briskly to the executive conference room on the 21st floor, where the board was waiting for the results of the Rivergate Hotel deal I had spent 3 months negotiating. Jordan was waiting outside, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed me one with a small smile. "They're expecting good news, Madeline." I tightened my grip on the cup, the caffeine burning down my throat like a warm fire. "The deal is closed. I have the CEO's signature. Final value, 50 million. Jordan whistled softly. "And they thought we couldn't keep that hotel in the portfolio. You just saved this entire financial quarter." I pushed open the conference room door. 12 board members sat waiting. As I laid out the contract, each clause, each long-term benefit, no one interrupted. Their pens moved steadily, their eyes locked on me. When I finished, Mr. Richardson, the company's CEO, stood, walked straight to me, and extended his hand. "You did what many thought impossible. Thank you, Madeline. Because of you, we've kept 160 jobs and preserved an iconic brand in this city." I bowed my head slightly in gratitude. As I walked out, applause still echoed behind me. In the hallway, Jordan patted my shoulder. "Has anyone ever told you to be proud of yourself?" I smiled. "A few people in the industry." "And your family?" I shook my head. "They don't value contracts, because you're not holding a shovel building the hotel." I said nothing, only gave a faint smile. That evening, driving home, I stopped at a small bakery in Old Town. I wanted to buy a simple cake vanilla with whipped cream, not to celebrate the contract, but to mark something else. I set the cake on my kitchen counter, took out my phone, and texted the family group. "Today, I closed the Rivergate deal. Value, $50 million. The company kept all its staff and assets." 4 minutes later, my father replied, "Just paperwork, honey. Not like Tyler, he builds actual buildings from the ground up. That's real value." I stared at the screen, my eyes blurring. I sighed, set the phone down. His words weren't new, but tonight they felt heavier, like a period at the end of every attempt I had ever made to share something. I stepped out onto the balcony, where the city lights shimmered in the distance. Across the street was a small park where I often jogged on weekends. I remembered when I was little, I once dreamed of becoming a civil engineer. I loved sketching houses, drawing staircases in pencil on grid paper. But I grew up, I became good with numbers, and fell in love with how money flowed, how real estate could thrive if placed in the right spot, at the right time. I didn't pour concrete, but I built the foundation. A few days later, at an industry event, I ran into one of Tyler's former colleagues, a man who had worked with him on a construction project in Texas. He struck up a conversation. "You're Tyler's sister, right? He talked about you a lot." I blinked in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah, but he always said you were just the kind of person who sits in an office crunching numbers. None of us thought you were the one behind the Rivergate deal." I gave a faint smile. "Good thing those papers and numbers kept 100 people employed." The man nodded, looking a little embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have judged so quickly." I turned away, a strange feeling rising in me. Not exactly hurt, more like a dull exhaustion that had built up over years. That night, I decided to call my mother. I just wanted to say, today was an important day for me. Her voice came through the speaker, pots clanging in the background. "Oh? What is it, honey?" "I just signed the biggest contract of my career." She was silent for a few seconds. "Oh, well, Tyler was appointed lead designer for a new resort project in Colorado today. His whole office was thrilled." I bit my lip. "I'm talking about me, Mom." "Yes, I heard you. But both of you are doing so well, just in different directions. But only one of us gets listened to." She didn't answer. I pressed on. "Mom, do you remember the name of the company I work for? It's something like North something, right?" I tightened my mouth. Northlake property, Mom. I've been there 11 years. Oh, that's right. You know I'm always busy. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. It's fine, Mom. After the call, I sat in the kitchen. The cake was still on the table, untouched. I cut a thin slice, set it on a porcelain plate. I ate it slowly, bite by bite, no rush. No one had to congratulate me. It was simply to remind myself that I deserved recognition, even if only from me. Because if I didn't do it, no one else would. I still remember that Friday afternoon, clearly the sky overcast, rain streaking the windows of the 21st floor office. I stayed late to compile files for the upcoming strategy meeting, my head still spinning after the phone call with my mother the day before. Jordan walked by, stopped at my desk, and set down a paper bag. Roast chicken and salad, no sugar. Just right for someone who's had 11 years of hard work brushed aside. I smiled without saying a word. He didn't wait for a response, just sat across from me, opened his laptop. The air between us was strangely comfortable, nothing to hide. Just as I finished typing the financial report, a notification popped up on my phone. New file added to family shared folder. It was the Google Drive folder my mother had set up for the family to share important information. Usually it was filled with wedding photos, recipes, random bills. I rarely checked it, but for some reason, I clicked. A file appeared titled Tyler's Wedding Contributions, Draft Allocation. I opened it. The spreadsheet listed expenses on the left: reception at Lakeview Hotel, evening jazz band, VIP guest gifts, flowers shipped from California, wine tasting menu before the wedding. On the right was the allocation of contributions. Under the line, Madeline, pay for jazz band, $7,000, cover all costs of invitations and VIP mailings. $3,800, special gifts for 3 important guests of the bride's family, $4,200. Contribution to main reception costs, $15,000. Support Tyler and Emily's honeymoon, $5,000, total $35,000. In the margin, a red note read, Madeline just received a bonus, she's fully capable. This is for the family's honor. I went still. Jordan stopped typing mid-sentence. What's wrong? I turned the screen toward him. He read a few lines, then looked up, brow furrowed. They're making decisions for you? I nodded, hardly believing my eyes. They never said a word to me, not one. Jordan gave a dry laugh. And yet they've assigned every dollar from your pocket, even the honeymoon. I slumped in my chair, my hands still on the keyboard. What I felt now wasn't anger. It was a bone-deep weariness. Not sharp like a knife, but grinding down slowly like stone against flesh. I opened another tab, checked back on all the payments I had made for the family over the past 7 years. Roof repairs after the storm in 2017. $8,200. Hospital bills for mom's knee surgery, $5,600. Down payment on Tyler's first condo, $12,000. 40th wedding anniversary party for my parents, $6,000. Tuition for my niece, $4,300. Total, $36,100. Not counting smaller expenses without receipts. And now, another $35,000 for a wedding where I had no voice at all. I opened the family email group, started typing a message to ask directly. Then, my fingers froze. Number I didn't write a thing. I didn't want to react in the usual way, explaining, yielding, carrying the weight. I needed time to breathe, to see the whole picture, to decide where I went from here. Jordan stared at me. You okay? I answered slowly. They don't need me there. They just need my wallet. Maybe it's time I accept that I don't belong anymore. He nodded. What do you want to do? I picked up my phone, opened the banking app. Freeze all linked accounts. Cancel the extra card I issued for Dad. I did it right then. Jordan was quiet for a while, then said softly, You once said you wanted a place just for yourself, somewhere no one could touch. I met his eyes. I still do, but I don't know where to start. He pulled a real estate magazine from his bag, flipped through, stopped at the listings section for Michigan Lake properties. I know a few spots by the lake. Peaceful, reasonably priced. If you're serious, this could be your first step. I took the magazine, my gaze landing on a house with a sloped roof, long wooden porch, cream-colored siding. The caption read, 4 bedrooms, large yard, private lakefront, clear title, owner has moved out. Asking price, $365,000. My heart thudded. Jordan said slowly, You have the finances, you have the right, and you deserve it. I closed the magazine and held it close to my chest. I'll call the realtor in the morning. Jordan said nothing more. We sat quietly in the warm glow of the office lamps. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside me, something had broken, and something new had begun to form. That night, back home, I didn't turn on the lights right away. The apartment glowed only with the yellow streetlights streaming through the windows, silent enough for me to hear my own heartbeat. The magazine lay open on the table on the page with the lakefront house. I stared at it for a long time before setting it down. My phone rang. It was Jordan. Have you eaten? Number, I'm not hungry. Come down to the Italian place on the corner. I'm here. I reluctantly put on a jacket, tied my hair back, and drove a few minutes. The restaurant was small, candlelight flickering on each table, the smell of pizza and roasted tomatoes in the air. Jordan sat waiting with 2 glasses of lemonade. He studied my face. You look like you just walked out of a battle. Maybe I did, and I didn't win. Jordan shook his head. You haven't fought back yet. You can't call it losing. I read that file carefully. If they really force you to pay like that, it's financial abuse. Don't think family matters have no legal weight. They do. I let out a small laugh, half bitter, half baffled. Are you saying I should sue my own parents? It doesn't have to mean suing, but you have every right to stop them. I practiced law long enough to know. If you want, I can help you gather proof, simple things, invoices, transfers, the emails where they spelled it out clearly. I looked at him, suddenly feeling my eyes burn. You think I've been taken advantage of? Jordan didn't hesitate. I don't think. I see it. And I see it so clearly I can't understand how you've endured this long. The server brought out a plate of pasta, setting it between us. I twirled the fork, but the noodles just slipped away. You don't understand, Jordan. They're my family. I always thought if I worked harder, if I proved I was good enough, they'd see me. Madeline, his voice was firm, you've already proven far more than you needed to. The Rivergate contract changed the entire company. You don't have anything left to prove. The problem isn't you. The problem is they don't want to see you. That sentence pierced deep inside me. I set the fork down. Jordan pulled out a folder and handed it to me. I had someone at the bank pull a few records. Here, more than 10 large transactions in the past 7 years. All from your account to your parents, and sometimes even to Tyler. I flipped through the pages. The numbers stared back. 12,000 for the condo deposit, 8,200 for roof repairs, 5,600 for hospital bills, all exactly as I half remembered. And not 1 cent has been returned, Jordan added. Not because they couldn't afford it. You know, Tyler still lives comfortably. Your parents still vacation in Florida every year. They didn't forget. They just assumed it was theirs by right. I clutched the folder, torn between grief and clarity. I've been used my whole life. Jordan placed his hand on the table close to mine. Exactly. And you need to protect yourself. They won't stop unless you say stop. I stayed quiet for a long while. In my head, old scenes echoed, birthdays ignored, graduations with empty seats, my father dismissing my work as just paperwork. Strung together, they formed a picture so sharp I couldn't look away anymore. I lifted my head. If I refuse, they'll call me ungrateful. That scares me. Listen, Jordan looked straight into my eyes. Ungrateful isn't guarding the money you earned with sweat. Ungrateful is letting them keep demeaning you, pushing you down. You're carrying the whole family while they barely look at you. You have to live your own life. I shivered, but something in me calmed. I no longer felt shame at the thought of setting boundaries. We finished eating and stepped outside. The night air was cool, traffic humming in the distance. Jordan stood by my car and said softly, "I'm not telling you to cut them off completely. I just want you clear-headed. You get to choose how you stay connected. You get to refuse being treated like a wallet." I nodded, holding the folder tight against me. That night, back in my apartment, I spread all the papers across the table. The numbers lined up like undeniable evidence. I opened a fresh notebook and wrote on the first page, what I've given. I listed every payment, every year, every reason. When I reached the end, the total stared back. Nearly $400,000. I sank into my chair. The apartment was silent except for the tick of the clock. But inside me, a storm rose. Not a storm of tears, one of truth. I picked up my phone, opened the family group chat. I typed, "I will not be paying for Tyler's wedding." Then, I erased it. Number not yet. I needed to be ready. When I spoke, it had to be final. Impossible to twist. I folded the folder shut and slid it into the drawer. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just the daughter chasing scraps of recognition anymore. I was becoming a woman learning to hold on to her own worth. On Saturday morning, I drove more than 4.5 hours from Chicago to Michigan. The road wound between tall pines, their green leaves rustling in the breeze. When the wooden sign came into view, Lakeview Properties Private Residences, my chest tightened. I pulled over, took a deep breath, and drove on. The house appeared after a curve. Gray shingled roof, long wooden porch, wide glass doors opening onto the lake. The water shimmered under the midday sun, the blue sky mirrored perfectly. The realtor unlocked the door, a rush of fresh wood scent mixed with cool lake air spilling out. "This one's been listed 2 months. The previous owners moved to Arizona," she explained. "You could move in right away." I walked through each room, a high-ceilinged living room, a modern kitchen flowing into the dining area, 4 bedrooms filled with sunlight. From the upstairs balcony, I looked out at the lake, the breeze carrying its crisp scent. In that moment, I felt I'd found a place no one could touch. "Do you want more time to think it over?" the realtor asked. I turned, voice steady. "I'll buy it." Weeks later, the deal was complete. I signed the deed with hands that no longer trembled. When I held the keys, a weight lifted. No one knew of this decision except Jordan and the realtor. The house was in my name alone. I spent 3 weekends furnishing, arranging, decorating. On the living room wall, I hung frames of achievements I'd never shared with my family. Trade magazines with my interviews, the Employee of the Year award, the team photo from the Rivergate project. In the master bedroom, I spread cream linens, added a reading chair by the window overlooking the lake. In the kitchen, I chose copper pots and white dishes with blue trim. When everything was ready, I planned a small gathering. Not loud or crowded, just a warm evening with people who truly valued me. I invited Jordan, a few close colleagues, 2 old friends from college, and Mrs. Bennett, my Chicago neighbor, who had shared dinners with me for years. That day, laughter filled the house. Jordan brought a bottle of 2010 Cabernet. "To your new home," he said, clinking glasses with me. Mrs. Bennett arrived with a handmade quilt, patches of green and blue stitched into waves. "Every home needs a little warmth made by hand." She smiled, draping it on the sofa. We sat on the porch, the lake breeze drifting in, the sun sinking over the water. Soft jazz played from a speaker, the smell of grilling meat rising from the yard. I felt surrounded by people who truly saw me. A colleague raised a glass. Madeline, you've inspired us, not just with the Rivergate deal, but with your courage to choose yourself. I smiled, my chest expanding. Thank you all for coming. This house is my birthday gift to myself. And tonight, I want to share it with the people who matter most. Late that night, after everyone left, I stood alone on the porch, looking at the golden lights shimmering on the lake. I took a picture, barefoot on the wooden floor, glass of wine in hand, the dark water behind me. I captioned it, "A birthday gift to myself." I posted it. The next morning, my phone lit up with hundreds of notifications. Friends, colleagues, even distant acquaintances sent congratulations. Comments poured in, "You deserve this. So proud of you. Wishing you happiness, Madeline." But mixed in were missed calls from my mother, my father, Tyler. 12 calls in 2 hours. A message from Mom read, "Madeline, when did you buy a house? Why didn't anyone in the family know? People are asking. You've embarrassed me." I stared at the words for a long time, then set the phone face down on the table. Outside, the lake sparkled in the sunlight, the breeze cool and refreshing. I poured another cup of coffee, sat in the armchair by the bedroom window, and opened it to let the scent of pine drift in. This space was mine. This decision was mine. And for the first time, I felt no guilt in keeping it that way. All morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from Mom, then texts from Dad, then Tyler. I muted it, but the screen still flashed, their anger trying to break in. Dad's message appeared, short and cold. "That house must be sold to pay for Tyler's wedding. You need to know your responsibility." I sat at the kitchen table, steam still rising from my coffee. I read the words again and again, feeling an invisible rope tightening around my neck. Just yesterday, I had felt free in this lake house, and now the old ropes were trying to coil back around me. An hour later, I was at the Chicago office. As soon as I set my bag down, I heard shouting at the reception desk. Tyler's familiar voice cut through the air, sharp and furious. "Where is she? Bring her out here now!" I stepped out, colleagues pausing to look. Tyler stood in the middle of the lobby, shirt untucked, face flushed red. When he saw me, he stormed over, his voice almost a shout. "You're so selfish, Madeline. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're openly defying the family. Everyone's talking about you buying a house and not inviting anyone from home. You've humiliated us." The office fell silent. Eyes filled with surprise, discomfort, even pity turned toward me. From across the room, Jordan hurried over, but I raised my hand, signaling him not to interfere. I looked straight at Tyler. "You have no right to come into my workplace and make a scene. This is my office, not a stage for you to perform on." "Perform?" Tyler sneered. "I'm telling the truth. Mom and Dad raised you, gave you everything, and now you've turned your back. You owe this family. You owe me." I could hear the whispers behind us. A few coworkers ducked their heads toward their screens to avoid eye contact. Jordan stepped closer, his voice calm. "Tyler, this isn't the place for an argument. If you keep shouting, I'll ask security to escort you out." Tyler glared at him, then turned back to me, eyes blazing. "You'll regret this. The whole family will never forgive you." He spun around and stormed out, leaving a heavy air behind. I stood tall, taking a deep breath. When I turned back, everyone's eyes were still on me. I gave a faint smile, speaking clearly. "It's handled. Let's get back to work." Back in my office, Jordan followed and closed the door. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Somewhat. But now it's crystal clear. They don't just want to control me. They want to turn me into a wallet, publicly, for everyone to see." Jordan nodded, setting a stack of papers on my desk. "I've pulled together more records. You need to keep everything. If they keep pushing, at least you'll have proof. I glanced at the file, then lifted my eyes. They won't stop, Jordan. But I'm not backing down either. That afternoon, I received an email from HR. They confirmed they'd documented Tyler's outburst and offered to issue a formal statement in my defense if needed. I thanked them but declined. I didn't want my family to become gossip fodder at work any more than it already had. That night, back at my apartment, the texts started again. Mom wrote, "You've humiliated me. People keep asking why your father and I weren't at the housewarming. Did you do this to punish us?" I set the phone down on the kitchen counter, opened the window to let the night air rush in. Headlights from passing cars cast light across the photo on my wall. Me, smiling brightly in front of the lake house, wine glass in hand. For the first time in years, I saw an image of myself that wasn't faded. The phone buzzed again. Dad. I let it ring out, then listened as his voicemail appeared. "You need to understand. Selling that house to pay for your brother's wedding is the reasonable thing to do. The family needs you. Stop being so stubborn." I sat down, cradling a glass of water. Inside me, a small flame began to rise. They could call, accuse, threaten, but that house, that life, was mine. That night, I pulled out the notebook where I had tracked everything I'd given. Flipping through the pages, I added one more line: Michigan Lake House, $400,000, the only investment just for me. I set the pen down and exhaled. For years, I thought sacrifice was the only way to preserve family ties. But the truth was clear: sacrifice had only cost me myself. Out on the balcony, the wind picked up, carrying a chill off the river. I stood there, looking down at the cars streaming under the yellow lights. Inside, I whispered, "This fight, I won't avoid it anymore." That gray afternoon, Chicago's sky felt heavy, storm brewing. I drove to my parents' mansion with a thick folder sitting neatly on the passenger seat. My heart pounded, but my hands stayed firm on the wheel. Before turning onto the stone-paved drive, I drew a deep breath. Inside, the living room was packed with relatives. Aunt Marianne, Uncle David, cousins all gathered. It didn't feel like a family meeting. It felt like a stage trial. Mom sat on the sofa, tissue in hand, eyes red. Dad leaned against the fireplace, whiskey glass in hand. Tyler and Emily sat together, smug looks on their faces. Dad tapped his glass, voice stern. "We're here tonight to settle this. Madeline, you've caused enough trouble. Your mother and I can't let this go on." I walked to the center, set the folder on the long wooden table. Every eye fixed on me. I opened it to the first page: bank statements. "I have caused trouble," I said slowly, "but not by buying a house. The real trouble is that for 20 years I've been used and ignored." I pushed the stack toward them. "Here's the proof." The room went still, the clock ticking loud in the silence. "Here, $12,000 for Tyler's first condo deposit, $8,200 for the roof repair after the storm, $5,600 for Mom's hospital bills, $6,000 for your anniversary, dozens of others, nearly $400,000 total." I turned another page. Photographs. I held one up. Me at 12, sitting in front of a tiny cake with a single candle, while the family was at Tyler's game. Another, me in a lavender prom dress standing outside the living room while they celebrated Tyler's scholarship. And another, me holding my diploma alone on graduation day. Mom burst into tears, burying her face in tissues. Dad clenched his glass, face red. Tyler slammed the table, his wine glass rattling. "You're smearing this family," he shouted. I looked directly at him, voice calm. "No, I'm showing the truth." "Try denying it. Can you say any of these never happened?" He froze for a beat, then spat. "You chose to do it." I nodded. "Yes, I chose once. But choice doesn't mean I'm a wallet forever. I won't carry it anymore." Whispers rippled through the room. Aunt Marianne leaned toward Uncle David, both looking shaken. Dad slammed his glass down. Enough, Madeline. You're disgracing us. Family means sacrifice. Tyler's the only son, he carries the Edwards legacy. You're obligated to help. I turned to him, each word deliberate. I've sacrificed 20 years. This family hasn't sacrificed a single day for me, Mom sobbed. Don't say that. I've always loved you. I locked eyes with her, steady. You loved me enough to forget my birthday for Tyler's Tate parties. You loved me enough not to remember the company I've worked at for 11 years. You loved me only when you needed favors, never with presents. The room fell silent. Tyler jumped up, pointing at me. You're just bitter no one pays attention to you. I smirked. If that's what you believe, keep it. But I won't let this family keep turning me into a shadow for you to shine on. I straightened, gathering the folder. Then I looked around at the familiar faces. This is 20 years of being used and forgotten. I don't need more explanations. From today, I will no longer be this family's wallet. The words hung heavy, striking the walls. The air froze. Mom sobbed. Tyler's teeth clenched. Dad's eyes burned. But I didn't tremble. Instead, I felt lighter, unburdened. I turned toward the door, every gaze trailing me, but no one moving to stop me. My hand touched the knob. I paused briefly, not looking back, only leaving one line. Family means building together, not crushing one person into the foundation so others can stand taller. The door shut behind me, echoing down the hall. Outside, I inhaled deeply. The night wind swept my hair, cold but clear, and I felt, for once, free. I thought it would end there, at the mansion. I had laid every truth on the table, told them I wasn't the family's wallet anymore. But I hadn't expected the consequences to spread far wider than I imagined. 3 days later, while at my office, Jordan walked in, holding his phone. He set it on my desk, screen glowing with an audio file. Listen, he said quietly. I pressed play. My voice rang out. This is proof of 20 years of being used and forgotten. Then the sounds, Tyler slamming the table, Mom sobbing, Dad's harsh tone. The entire tense meeting captured. I exhaled sharply. Who? Probably one of the relatives. Thought it'd be juicy to share, Jordan said, sitting across from me, his expression grave. It's out now, Maddie. Social media's buzzing. And it's not just within the family. A storm of emotions rose: shock, dread, and oddly, relief. The truth was no longer trapped inside those four walls. That afternoon, a friend texted me. The local paper had run a piece summarizing the Edwards family and the emergency meeting secrets. Dad, long a member of the city's trade council, and Mom, active in charity circles, had cultivated a spotless image for years. Now, cracks spread. My phone lit up again. A message from Mom. You've destroyed our reputation. Relatives, friends, even the charity board are talking. Are you happy now? I didn't reply. I stared out the office window at Chicago's skyscrapers gleaming in the sunday. In my head, one thought echoed, they destroyed themselves, not me. But I hadn't expected the fallout to hit Tyler so quickly. A week later, I heard that the construction company he worked for had received a flood of criticism. Rumors about the little brother living off his sister spread fast, and clients lost trust. In one meeting, a partner bluntly asked, "Can you stand on your own 2 feet, or are all your expenses covered by your sister?" Tyler stormed out in anger, and a few days later, he was suspended. One evening, while I was at the lake house, my phone rang. Tyler's name lit up the screen. I almost let it go, but I answered. Are you happy now? His voice was hoarse, caught between fury and desperation. I didn't do anything but tell the truth, I replied evenly. You've turned me into a joke. Friends, colleagues, everyone looks at me like a leech. I've lost everything. I was silent for a moment before answering slowly. You lost because of what you and our parents created. I just stopped carrying it for you. Tyler went quiet, then hung up. I sank into a chair, exhaling deeply. I didn't feel satisfaction, and I didn't feel guilt. Only emptiness, as if a heavy book had finally been closed. Meanwhile, my career took an unexpected turn. The strength I'd shown during that confrontation and the honesty of my words caught the real estate industry's attention. A week later, I received an invitation from the Regional Real Estate Association. They wanted me on the board of directors as a strategic advisor. At the official meeting, the chairman said, "Madeline, we read about you. Not everyone has the courage to stand up in a family meeting and tell the truth. That kind of strength is what this industry needs." I sat still, letting those words sink in, my heart trembling. I had never imagined that decades of silence could end with an opportunity like this. Jordan was the first person I called to share the news. He came straight to the lake house with a bottle of wine. When I told him about the invitation, he smiled and raised his glass. "I told you, you deserve more than what they gave you. Now the world sees it too." I clinked my glass against his, my voice shaking softly. "I never thought I'd make it this far." He looked at me seriously. "You did because you finally chose yourself." That night, with the wind from the lake sweeping across the porch, I sat by the window, moonlight spreading across the water. I thought about my mother, my father, Tyler. They were drowning in the storm of public opinion, while I was lifted by the very truth they'd tried to bury. I didn't feel like I had won. What I felt was balance, something slowly being restored. And maybe that was what I had been waiting for my whole life. The next morning, the September sun sparkled across the lake, waves lapping gently against the shore like a quiet song. I woke early, preparing everything for my 36th birthday party. A long table on the porch was covered with a white cloth, vases of sunflowers mixed with sprigs of lavender. From the kitchen, the oven filled the house with the scent of apple cinnamon pie. Friends and colleagues arrived. Early, Jordan carried in a bottle of red wine from Napa Valley, placing it carefully on the table. He laughed when he saw me juggling stacks of glasses. "Don't do everything yourself, Madeline. Today is your day," I laughed, letting him help. Then, one by one, guests stepped into the house, their voices and laughter lighting up the space. Some brought gifts, some brought flowers, but what I cherished most was their presence, the people who truly wanted to be there for me. When the cake was placed at the center of the table, everyone sang. I closed my eyes, drew a deep breath, and blew out the glowing candles amid cheers. My chest filled with a feeling I could hardly name, peace mixed with pride. A year ago, I had sat alone with a tiny cake in an empty apartment. Today, I was surrounded by eyes that looked at me with genuine recognition. The party was in full swing when a knock came at the door. I frowned, puzzled. Everyone on the guest list was already there. When I opened it, I froze. Tyler stood on the doorstep, holding a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. No Emily, no parents, just him. His eyes no longer held defiance, but unease and fatigue. "Can I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. The room hushed as everyone noticed my brother. Tyler walked slowly to the table and set the box in front of me. "This is for you." I opened it. Inside was an old photo frame, holding a picture of me at 10 years old. I sat at the kitchen table with a tiny cake and two crooked candles. The overhead bulb left a faint glare across the photo. No one else was in the frame, just me and that cake. Tyler's voice cracked. "I found it in Dad's old things. You deserve to be remembered. I was wrong to stay silent all those years." I touched the picture, my fingers trembling over the face of the little girl. My throat tightened, eyes brimming. But even then, part of me still felt an empty space, a wound that hadn't healed. "Tyler," I said slowly, "I don't need your apology to exist." "But I need you to understand that silence can wound as deeply as harsh words. He lowered his head, saying nothing. After a moment, he stepped back, leaving me to place the photo on the wooden shelf. I didn't rush to forgive, and I didn't push him away. I simply let the truth hang in the air, like an unfinished sentence. The party went on, though everyone could sense the shift. As night fell and guests began to leave, I carried a glass of wine out to the porch. The lake breeze cooled my skin, carrying the scent of water. I stood there, watching the moon ripple across the surface, raising my glass high. In my chest, a whisper rose. I don't need them to exist. I have chosen myself. The moonlight seemed to echo that voice, shimmering over the wide open water. And in that moment, I saw the road ahead uncertain. Yes, but mine, alone to choose. Questions still lingered. Would my family truly change, or would they slip back into their old ways? Would Tyler find the courage to face himself, or was this just a fleeting moment of regret? But maybe the most important thing wasn't what they would do, it was what I would choose for myself. I had stepped out of the shadows of neglect. I had found strength in my own voice. And I believed that anyone who has ever felt overlooked or forgotten could reclaim their worth if they dared to stand up and choose themselves. And you, what about you? If you were in my place, what would you do? Would you end years of silence or keep enduring for the sake of family? I'd love to hear your thoughts because every story, every experience can be a source of strength for someone else. If my journey resonates with you, follow this channel so we can continue exploring more stories about life, family, and the ways we learn to stand tall on our own feet. There are more stories waiting unexpected, moving, and filled with lessons still to come.